Hello my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're doing a little BYOP video. This time I'm doing a palette redesign. This is basically what I wish the ColourPop Alice in Wonderland palette would have been. I reviewed that whole collection and overall I really liked it. I thought it was really fun and well done, but one of the things that I felt was lacking was the color story in the palette. Part of that is just because I'm not a big pastels fan, but I am a huge Alice in Wonderland fan. It was one of my favorite Disney movies all throughout my childhood. I've watched it many, many times. As somebody who is a fan of that movie, I feel that pastels don't really suit the movie as a whole. I wanted some richer, more colorful, saturated, and kind of weird colors. A couple people pointed out that they liked the color story, they felt it fit the movie. That's fine, you know, we're all gonna have different opinions and different ideas about that. Personally, my own preferences, I really want something that encapsulates the feeling of the movie as a whole. So I did build my own palette based on this inspiration, and I'm gonna take you through all the steps of my palette building process. Sometimes for these types of videos, I do little mood boards, so I'm gonna show you everything, where all my inspo came from. I'll show you which shades are in my own little prototype palette, and I'm also going to show you 2 different eye looks using my version of the Alice in Wonderland palette. So we have a lot to get into. Let's just start at the beginning of my process. I'll walk you through how I built one of these. I decided to start this process by pulling some clips from the actual movie, and I really wanted to intentionally choose scenes from the movie. I didn't want to have just more portrait style looks at the characters or anything like that. I wanted to have the background, the feeling, the interactions all sort of working together in my inspiration little mood board here. The overall tone of the movie is a lot darker than the pastel palette that was released. You can see here the background has these really deep, dark, sometimes literally black backgrounds, but it's really rich. There's a lot of juxtaposition of bright colors and deep jewel tones. Somehow it still manages to be a really whimsical color palette. Deep dark colors like this can go moody really quickly, but I think because of the bright pops and the strangeness of the overall movie, it really works. So this is what I pulled my colors from, and this is what my photoshopped version became. I wanted to keep the same structure and some of the same integrity of the original palette here, but I just wanted to pull more from the source of my inspiration here with these stills from the film. I wanted to capture, of course, the brights and the whimsical, very cartoony nature, but I also wanted it to be more grounded in the deeper, saturated, almost moody tones of this film. I want to show you a side-by-side with the actual palette that was released and my palette design. That way you can see I really did try to keep a lot of the original inspiration. I just wanted to deepen it up. I didn't want to completely change the colors. I really just wanted to tweak them. And I think that it really stands out when you see part of the cover and the outer packaging. I think that the brighter color version really suits the packaging that's already on the palette more than the more toned down, lighter pastel-y colors. So I did deepen it up. I added darker, more saturated colors, and overall just a more colorful palette, color story overall. And I didn't want to stress about making the arrangement of the shades really make sense. I didn't want it to be these perfectly grouped, either more monochromatic tonal arrangements or even just like a very clear rainbow color arrangement. I wanted it to be a little bit all over the place. I still think that these are useful, particularly in the columns, but I wanted them to be kind of mismatched and make your eye travel all over the palette. I think that fits the feeling of the movie, kind of disjointed or unbalanced type of feeling that the movie has. Typically, this is not the type of color arrangement that I favor, and in any other situation, I would probably really deeply dislike this, but for this inspiration, it just made sense to me. Of course, I did make a prototype, so I'm gonna show you my shades that I pulled. They aren't perfect to the photoshopped version that I made. I just sort of had to make do with what I had on hand. And it's really, really close, but I'm sure if I had the time to maybe pick up a couple of new singles, purchase some new shades, or dismantle some palettes or something, I could have made it even more spot on. But overall, I think that I did pretty darn good. So I'm going to show you the prototype now. The shade names are laid over the shadows here if you want to take a pause and take a screenshot, or I will write them all out in the description box if that's easier for you. I just wanted to have a reference for both depending on which way is easier for you to either go and see if you have any of these shades to pull together a palette yourself, or maybe one of these catches your eye and you want to go see if it's still in stock. Whenever I do these build your own palette videos, it's not to encourage you to go and purchase all of these individual singles, but more to just encourage you to play around with what you might already have in your own collection and draw some new inspiration there. Here's a side-by-side of my photoshopped version and then my real life version. Of course, these shadows will look a little bit different once they're swatched onto the skin because some of these do have a duochrome or multi-chrome shift, which I think is perfect for an Alice in Wonderland palette. Here's the whole palette swatched out on my arm. And when you see these applied to the skin, they're not as deep and dark as they look in the pan, in my opinion, but they can be layered up, and a lot of these shades look really cool with a black eyeshadow base. If you have like a jumbo pencil or a cream shadow or something that's deeper and darker, you can really get even more depth out of a lot of these shadows, particularly these shifty shades. That could be really cool for some deeper, moodier Alice in Wonderland looks. Overall, I love the way that all of these shades came together. Because I chose not to do any neutrals in this palette, I know this could be a little bit too bold, a little bit too bright. This definitely wouldn't be the world's most marketable palette for ColourPop and Disney, but I feel like for me it really fits my movie inspiration mood board. Now that you've seen the palette I came up with, I want to show you two different eye looks where I did manage to use most of the shadows in here. That way you can see some of these colors in action and some of the color combinations I had in mind when I was choosing these shadows. My first look is inspired by this scene with the caterpillar. After priming my lids, I'm going in with a combination of Shire and Geese. I want a really yellowy, neon green, blown out crease look. So I'm focusing that up towards the brow bone because I really want that color to peek out above the deeper shades that I'm going to add to the lid itself. I'm starting with the shade Petrichor from Lethal to start building up some color on the lid itself. I'm putting a little bit of that on the inner and outer corners of the lid, first softly and then building it up to a little bit more opacity. Because this is a very pigmented shadow, I want to take my time with the placement. I also repeated the same steps on the lower lash line on the very inner and outer corners with that deep turquoise color, and then packing the shade Shire right in the center so that I get that spotlight type look on upper and lower lids. Then I'm going to mix Tide Pool and Beyond Apollo so that I get a really rich turquoisey green shimmer all over the center of the lid. curled my lashes, added some mascara, and then after that I thought, you know, I need to do a little bit more blending in the crease area. So I used a mixture of Shire and a little bit of Petrichor to bring a mid-tone green into that transition crease area there. And I think that really brought out and emphasized the green. So this is the caterpillar smoking hookah scene from Alice in Wonderland that inspired this look. And I think the colors really play well together. They definitely echo the film really well without having to be exactly literal, but I love the way this turned out. It's even better than I envisioned it, especially with that pop of green in the center of the lower lash line. I think this is really cool and definitely fits the movie. For my second look, I'm going to be inspired by this scene with the Cheshire Cat. I'm going for the pinky purples, deep purpley blue type of colors from that little frame where he's standing on his head, with the blue from the tree and the deep dark purple of the background. The shade Spacebound is the perfect start for this look. I used that all in the crease area, and then I started building this dark purpley shade called Starcatcher up on the outer half of the lid. I really took my time building up this deep dark purple, going back and forth and blending with my original crease brush so that I would get a really soft, smooth transition between these pink and purple shades. Now, the Cheshire Cat inspired look definitely needs some shine. In several of the Cheshire Cat's scenes in the movie, he sort of seems to have his own glow. He has like this glowing aura where it looks like he is reflecting or creating his own light. So the shades Exosphere and Genesis in these shifty blue-based type of colors are perfect to complete this look. I did use a little bit of Spacebound and Totally Worth It on the lower lash line to balance out the look and to add a little bit of shine and depth to that lower line as well. Of course, curled my lashes, added some mascara, and I absolutely love this finished look. It's so simple, but again, I feel like it really captures this scene from the movie. The colors, the shine, everything just really turned out, again, even better than I envisioned it. I loved this look so much that I wore it for a few other videos that you're gonna see coming up in the future as well. Aren't you proud of me? I put blue, my most scariest color, in both of these looks. I always like these palettes where I get to be a little bit more creative than just my regular old info heavy swatch and review type of videos. I like to have a little bit of everything here. Eye looks, building my own palettes, swatching and reviewing, comparing. I just like to be able to do everything. And I appreciate you watching all of my many different ideas. I would love to know what you think about the palette I came up with. Is it too bright and out there for you? Maybe you prefer the more pastel version that's a little bit more toned down. I always love to hear what you think about things, whether we have the same opinion or not. That's what makeup's all about. There's definitely something out there for everybody. And I always appreciate your thoughts on things. So leave them all in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. How do I keep ending up in blue eyeshadow? What's happening to me? Is blue gonna be the new green? Because I used to never wear green eyeshadow, and now it's one of my top 2 favorite eyeshadow colors to wear. I don't know. Personally, I think that the whole reason why the actual palette has the colors that it has is only solely to make it more marketable. I don't think it has anything to do with any specific scene in the movie. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like the only inspiration they needed was making a Venn diagram of Disney customers and ColourPop customers and then figuring out which colors were right there in the middle. I don't know, maybe I'm just cynical. I mean, it could be both. I've been filming so much the past couple of days and I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm fine. Blah, blah. I'm an adult. Yikes. Is that I come Well, that's it. My camera battery's about to die, so perfect timing because I just finished it all up. Crushed it. Thanks for watching. You're the best. I always appreciate it. I always appreciate seeing your little face around here. And I hope I see it again real soon in the next one. Because I love your face. Bye.